Lucy Carter was only 6 years old when she made the mistake that would shake the galaxy. She had been watching a small cleaning robot float down the corridor of Harmony Station, its lights blinking in patterns that fascinated her. The machine moved like a dancing firefly, and Lucy giggled as she followed it. Her parents were 3 floors below in the big meeting rooms. Her father worked with metals and minerals from asteroids. Her mother helped design the ships that carried those minerals across space. They had told Lucy to stay in the waiting area and play with her tablet, but the little robot had been too interesting. The robot turned a corner and Lucy ran after it. She did not see the symbols on the archway above her head. She could not read the alien writing that said this area was forbidden to outsiders. To Lucy, it was just another hallway in the massive station where thousands of different aliens lived and worked together. The corridor was beautiful. The walls were made of smooth metal that reflected her image like dozens of mirrors. Soft blue lights glowed from the ceiling. Everything was quiet and clean and empty. Lucy slowed down, looking around. The robot had disappeared somewhere ahead. "Hello," Lucy called out. Her small voice echoed strangely in the big space. Heavy footsteps answered her. Lucy turned and saw a tall alien walking toward her. The creature stood nearly 8 feet high, covered in purple scales that shimmered under the lights. She wore a dark uniform with silver symbols on the chest and shoulders. In her 3-fingered hand she carried a long metal stick that gleamed like polished chrome. Officer Kthra of the Zenthari diplomatic guard stopped when she saw the human child. Her eyes, large and golden, narrowed with anger. Her head crest rose up, the scales spreading like a fan. To Kthra this was an outrage. A human child, barely more than an infant, standing in the sacred diplomatic preparation halls where tomorrow's council business would be discussed. Kthra spoke in her own language, harsh clicking sounds that hurt Lucy's ears. A small device on Kthra's collar translated the words into English. "You should not be here. This place is forbidden." Lucy felt afraid now. The tall alien looked angry. "I'm sorry," Lucy said quietly. "I was just following the robot. I'll go back now." She started to turn away, back toward the archway where she had entered. Kthra's anger grew hotter. The child thought she could simply apologize and leave? That such disrespect for sacred council spaces deserved no punishment? In Zenthari culture, violation of holy ground required immediate correction. The child's youth meant nothing. Rules were rules. The ceremonial baton moved faster than Lucy could see. It was made of reinforced titanium alloy, designed to be a symbol of authority and power. When it struck the side of Lucy's face, the crack echoed down the empty corridor like a gunshot. Lucy's small body spun from the force of the blow. She fell hard onto the metal floor. Blood began pooling beneath her cheek almost immediately. Her eyes stayed closed. She did not move at all. Kthra stood over the child, breathing steadily. She felt satisfied. Protocol had been enforced. The sacred spaces had been defended from contamination. She touched a button on her uniform. Security Chief Kthra reporting. "Intruder has been stopped in Sector 7. Send cleaning crews to the diplomatic wing." 2 guards arrived within 3 minutes. They were Quellans, short furry beings with long whiskers and large eyes. When they saw the small human child lying in blood, both of them froze. "You hit a child?" one whispered, his whiskers shaking. "A small child?" Kthra's crest flattened against her skull. "I enforce station law. Article 47 clearly states that unauthorized entry into diplomatic zones must be met with immediate action. I demand full diplomatic immunity for my lawful duties. That law is for spies and criminals, not lost children. The law makes no such distinction. Send for medical assistance. I have reports to file." Kthra walked away, her boots clicking on the metal floor. Behind her, the Quellan guards knelt beside Lucy, one of them calling desperately for emergency medical teams. Doctors arrived with floating stretchers and scanning equipment. They lifted Lucy carefully, their instruments beeping alarms as they read her injuries. Fractured jaw. Broken cheekbone. Brain bleeding on the inside. Possible damage to her spine from hitting the floor. The small human was dying. They rushed her to the medical center, where alien doctors who had never treated a human child before worked frantically to save her life. Human biology was still new to most of the galaxy. They made their best guesses, used their most advanced equipment, and hoped it would be enough. George Carter was in the middle of explaining Earth's mining regulations when station security found him. They pulled him from the meeting with just 4 words, "Your daughter is injured." He ran through the corridors, his heart pounding. His wife Sarah met him halfway, her face white with fear. Neither of them spoke as they sprinted toward the medical wing. When they entered the room and saw Lucy, Sarah made a sound like a wounded animal. Their little girl lay on a bed too big for her, surrounded by machines that beeped and hummed. Her face was swollen to twice its normal size, covered in purple and black bruises. A tube helped her breathe. Wires and cables connected her to monitors that showed numbers neither parent understood. What happened? George asked, though he already felt the terrible answer forming in his chest. The Quellan doctor's whiskers drooped with sadness. A diplomatic officer struck her. She says your daughter was in a restricted area. The injuries are very serious. We are doing everything possible, but the next 2 days will decide if she lives or dies. Sarah collapsed into a chair, taking Lucy's small hand in both of hers. George stood frozen, staring at his daughter's broken face. Something cold and hard settled in his stomach. Something that felt like iron and tasted like blood. Who? He asked quietly. Who did this? Officer Kthra. She is Zenthari. She has claimed diplomatic immunity. George looked up at the doctor. What does that mean? It means she cannot be punished. Station law protects her. The council has already reviewed the case and closed it. They call it an unfortunate cultural misunderstanding. George Carter had never been a violent man. He worked with numbers and contracts and mining equipment. He had never even been in a fist fight. But as he looked at his daughter fighting for her life because an alien had beaten her for getting lost, he felt something break inside himself. Sarah made one call that night. She used an emergency code that George's military brother had given them years ago, a number to call if they were ever in real danger far from Earth. When someone answered, Sarah spoke very calmly. Our daughter was attacked on Harmony Station. The alien who did it will not be punished. We need help. The voice on the other end was quiet for a long moment. Then 3 words, help is coming. Kthra sat in her quarters that evening, drinking expensive wine and reviewing reports. The human incident had already been filed and forgotten. Her diplomatic immunity was absolute. She had acted within her authority. Soon she would receive a commendation for her dedication to protocol. She did not know that 3 unmarked ships had just entered the system. She did not know that they carried men and women who had been born on a world that killed the weak, where only the strong survived. She did not know that Deathworlders do not forgive those who hurt their children. The 3 ships appeared on Harmony Station's sensors exactly 18 hours after Lucy Carter fell. They came from the darkness between stars, moving in perfect formation like wolves closing in on prey. Commander Quell watched the approaching vessels with growing nervousness. His tentacles twisted around each other as he studied the sensor data. The ships were small, built for speed rather than cargo. They carried no identification markers. They did not respond to hails. They simply came closer and closer, their course aimed directly at the station's main docking bay. Send another message, Quell ordered. Tell them they must identify themselves or we will deny docking permission. The young Quellan communications officer sent the message on all frequencies. The 3 ships continued their approach without acknowledgement. They moved with a precision that made Quell's skin crawl. This was not the clumsy flying of merchants or the lazy drift of tourists. These ships moved like weapons. Commander, they are requesting emergency docking clearance, the officer reported. Medical emergency. They are transmitting human authorization codes. Deny them. We have no scheduled human arrivals. Tell them to maintain distance until they provide proper documentation. The 3 ships did not slow down. Instead, they split formation, each one heading for a different docking port. Before Quell could order defensive measures, all 3 ships had locked onto docking clamps and begun boarding procedures. They are coming in anyway, the officer whispered, his whiskers trembling. Station security is responding to all 3 airlocks. Quell slammed a tentacle against his desk. Seal those sections. Do not let them board. This is an invasion of Sovereign Council space. But the humans had already disabled the airlock controls from their ships. The doors opened smoothly, and figures in dark clothing stepped onto Harmony Station without permission or apology. Captain Andrew Mills was the first through the central airlock. He stood just under 6 feet tall, built like a fighter with broad shoulders and careful movements. His face showed no expression as station security guards rushed toward him with weapons raised. Stop where you are, the lead guard shouted. You are boarding without authorization. This is a violation of council law. Andrew looked at the guard for a long moment. Then he walked past him as if the alien did not exist. Behind Andrew, 11 more humans followed in a tight formation. They wore no uniforms, no ranks, no identification of any kind. But they moved with the discipline of soldiers who had trained together for years. The security guard grabbed at Andrew's arm. The human stopped, looked down at the hand on his sleeve, then looked back at the guard. He said nothing. His eyes were completely calm. The guard felt his courage drain away and released his grip. "Take us to the human child who was injured," Andrew said quietly. His voice was soft, almost gentle. "Lucy Carter. Medical wing. Now." "I cannot. You have no authority here. You must leave immediately or we will use force." Andrew tilted his head slightly. "You can try." The guard looked at the 12 humans standing in his station without permission or fear. He looked at their calm faces and relaxed postures. He realized with sudden clarity that these were not people who made empty threats. These were people who had already decided what they were going to do, and nothing in the galaxy would stop them. "Follow me," the guard whispered. They moved through the station in silence. Other aliens pressed against the walls as the humans passed, sensing something dangerous in their quiet confidence. Andrew and his team did not look around or speak to each other. They simply walked with purpose, their boots making steady rhythms on the metal floors. George Carter was sitting beside Lucy's bed when Andrew Mills entered the medical wing. The human captain stood in the doorway for a moment, looking at the small girl surrounded by machines. His jaw tightened. That was his only reaction. "George Carter?" Andrew asked. George looked up, red-eyed and exhausted. "Yes. Who are you?" "My name is Andrew Mills. Your wife sent a message to Earth. We are here to help." "Help how?" "The Council says the alien who did this cannot be touched. Diplomatic immunity. They will not even investigate what happened." Andrew pulled a chair close and sat down. He spoke very quietly, but his words carried absolute certainty. "Mr. Carter, I need you to listen carefully. My team and I are not diplomats. We are not politicians. We are here to make sure that justice is served for your daughter. Do you understand what I am saying?" George stared at the man. "You cannot. Station law protects her. The Zenthri have power in the Council. If you do anything, it will cause an interstellar incident." "Yes," Andrew agreed. "It probably will. Do you want justice for Lucy, or do you want politics?" George looked at his daughter's broken face. He thought about the alien who had done this, walking free, drinking wine, celebrating her dedication to protocol. He thought about a system that valued diplomatic immunity over a child's life. "I want justice," George whispered. Andrew nodded once. "Then trust us. Stay with your daughter. Take care of your wife. We will handle everything else." He stood and left the room. His team was waiting in the corridor outside. They gathered around him in a tight circle. "Status?" Andrew said quietly. A woman with ice blue eyes spoke first. "Target confirmed. Officer Kthra. Zenthri. Senior Diplomatic Security. Quarters on Level 12, Section 42. She has 6 personal guards and station security support." A tall man with scarred hands added his report. "Station layout mapped. Environmental systems accessed. We have control of life support, gravity controls and door locks in key sections. Station security uses standard Council equipment. Nothing that will stop us." "Rules of engagement," Andrew said. It was not a question but a command for confirmation. The entire team answered in perfect unison. "No fatalities. No permanent damage. Precision only." Andrew looked at each face. These men and women had come from Earth's harshest places. Arctic survival experts who could function in temperatures that would freeze other species solid. Deep-sea operators who worked under pressure that would crush alien bones to powder. Desert fighters who thrived in heat that would cook most galactic citizens alive. They were humans who had learned to survive on a planet that tried to kill them every single day. "Kthra does not know what she started when she hurt that child," Andrew said. "She thinks diplomatic immunity is a shield. She thinks laws will protect her. She does not understand that we are not here to follow laws. We are here to enforce justice." "When?" someone asked. "We give the Council 47 hours to act. We file formal complaints through every proper channel. We do this by the rules first. If the rules fail, then we do it our way. And if they try to stop us?" Andrew's expression did not change. "They cannot stop us. This station was built for species that evolved on gentle worlds. We are from Earth. There is nowhere on this station we cannot go. No environment we cannot survive. No security we cannot bypass. Kthra is already caught. She just does not know it yet." The team dispersed silently. Within an hour, they had taken positions throughout the station. They moved through ventilation shafts too hot for other species. They worked in radiation-contaminated maintenance tunnels that would sicken aliens in minutes. They accessed the station's infrastructure from places no one else could reach. Kthra sat in her quarters, completely unaware that 12 Deathworlders were already hunting her. The first malfunction happened in the diplomatic wing at exactly midnight station time. The environmental controls in Section 42 flickered, sending the temperature down by 10 degrees in 30 seconds. Kthra's guards shivered and complained, pulling their uniforms tighter against the sudden cold. The technicians came to investigate. They found nothing wrong with the systems. Everything appeared normal on their diagnostic screens. Yet the temperature continued to drop randomly throughout the night, then spike back to normal just as suddenly. Kthra barely noticed. She was too busy preparing her report for the council, documenting her exemplary service record and requesting a commendation for her dedication to protocol enforcement. The human child's condition was not her concern. She had acted within her authority. The law was clear. What Kthra did not know was that a human woman named Claire was currently sitting inside the environmental control junction directly above her quarters. The temperature in that junction was 140 degrees, hot enough to cook most alien species alive within minutes. Claire wore only light clothing and drank water slowly from a bottle while her fingers danced across a modified control pad. She had been there for 3 hours. She would stay for 6 more. The heat barely bothered her. She had grown up in the Australian outback where summer days regularly exceeded 50 degrees. This was uncomfortable but manageable. 2 levels below, in a maintenance tunnel flooded with radiation from the station's power core, a man named Victor carefully mapped the station's internal network. The radiation levels would have killed a Quellan in under an hour. Victor had been there for 4 hours and planned to stay for 8 more. He had worked in nuclear facilities on Earth, places where humans learned to function in environments that turned other species into statistics. His hands moved steadily, installing bypass codes and override protocols. When the time came, Andrew's team would control every door, every camera, every sensor in this section of the station. And no one would know until it was too late. On the 3rd day after the humans arrived, Kthra's personal guard began reporting strange incidents. Doors that should have been locked stood open. Security cameras showed static for brief moments. Motion sensors triggered in empty corridors. "We are being watched," her lead guard insisted. "I can feel it. Something is wrong." Kthra dismissed his concerns. "Station systems are old and unreliable. Stop acting like a frightened child. No one would dare threaten a Zenthri diplomatic officer. I am protected by council law." But that night, as Kthra walked from her quarters to the dining hall, every guard felt it. The sensation of eyes watching from the shadows. The certainty that something dangerous moved nearby, just out of sight. They increased sensor sweeps. They found nothing. They posted extra guards. The feeling persisted. One guard swore he saw a human face looking down at him from a ventilation grate, but when he investigated, the grate was sealed and showed no signs of tampering. The humans moved through the station like ghosts. They used access routes that station designers had assumed no one would ever enter. They crawled through gaps between hull plates where the vacuum of space leaked in, wearing minimal pressure suits and breathing recycled air. They hung from the outside of the station's hull, working on external sensors in the freezing void, their bodies handling the extreme cold that would freeze other species solid. Andrew coordinated everything from a maintenance closet near the central computer core. He had been living there for 72 hours, eating rations and sleeping in 3-hour shifts. The closet was too small for most aliens to enter comfortably, and the air recycling system barely functioned. Andrew found it perfectly adequate. He watched security footage on a screen he had tapped into the station's network. Kthra appeared on camera, walking confidently through corridors, attending meetings, filing reports. She showed no concern, no fear, no awareness that she was already caught in a trap that tightened with each passing hour. "Status check," Andrew whispered into his communicator. The device used a frequency that station sensors did not monitor, a band of radio waves that most council species could not even detect. Reports came back one by one. Claire had accessed the environmental controls for 12 sections. Victor had mapped 70% of the internal systems. A team member named Felix had disabled emergency lockdown protocols in key areas. Another named Rachel had created false sensor readings that would hide human movement when the time came. "Target movement?" Andrew asked. "She requested early departure," Claire's voice crackled back. "Transport scheduled for tomorrow morning. She plans to leave before any formal complaints can be processed." Andrew's expression hardened. "Delay her departure. Make it look like normal bureaucratic problems." Within an hour, Kthra's transport reservation vanished from the system. When she tried to rebook, every available ship was mysteriously full. Technical difficulties plagued the docking schedules. Maintenance issues appeared on vessels that had been perfectly functional hours before. Kthra grew increasingly frustrated as her departure was pushed back day after day. She demanded explanations from Commander Quell, who could offer none. The station's computer systems showed legitimate reasons for every delay, but the timing seemed impossibly unfortunate. "This is clearly human interference," Kthra complained. "They are trying to trap me here. I demand Council protection. I demand these humans be removed from the station immediately." Quell tried. He sent formal orders for the humans to leave. Andrew Mills responded with carefully worded legal documents, citing Council regulations that allowed family members to remain near injured relatives receiving medical care. Every diplomatic channel Quell attempted to use, the humans blocked with proper procedures and correct paperwork. "They know Council law better than we do," Quell's assistant whispered. "Every action they take is technically legal. We cannot force them to leave without violating our own regulations." Meanwhile, Lucy Carter remained in the medical wing, her condition slowly improving. The doctors said she would live, but her recovery would take months. George and Sarah never left her side, watching their daughter breathe and waiting for her eyes to open. Kthra's guards became more nervous each day. Equipment malfunctioned around them constantly. Lights flickered. Doors stuck. Security badges stopped working randomly. One guard quit after his weapon disappeared from its holster while he was wearing it, only to reappear on his desk hours later with a note in English that read, "You will not need this." "We should request transfer," another guard suggested. "This station is compromised. The humans are doing something and we cannot stop them." Kthra refused to show fear. "They are primitive Deathworlders playing games. They have no real power here. I am protected by diplomatic immunity. They cannot touch me." On the 7th day, Kthra's door stopped locking properly. Engineers examined it and found nothing wrong, yet it would not secure. She demanded repairs. The repairs were completed. The door still would not lock. Finally, station security posted 2 guards directly outside her quarters at all times. That night, both guards fell asleep at exactly the same moment. They woke hours later with no memory of what happened, groggy and confused. Medical scans showed they had been exposed to a sleep agent in the air, but atmospheric sensors detected nothing unusual. Kthra finally began to feel real fear. She contacted her government, demanding they send Zenthari security forces to protect her. The response was carefully neutral. Zenthari officials did not want to escalate tensions with humans over what the Council had officially classified as a closed incident. She was alone, trapped on a station where Deathworlders hunted her through systems she could not access and spaces she could not survive. Andrew Mills watched all of this unfold with calm patience. The 47 hours he had given the Council were almost over. Every proper channel had been tried. Every diplomatic option had been exhausted. The Council had refused to act. Now it was time for Deathworlder justice. Kthra woke in absolute darkness. She tried to activate the lights with a voice command but nothing happened. She reached for the emergency panel beside her bed. Her hand found only smooth wall where the panel should have been. "Lights," she commanded again, her voice rising with concern. Silence answered her. Then she heard breathing. Someone else was in her quarters. Someone who had been sitting quietly in the dark, waiting for her to wake. "Security," Kthra called out, her hand fumbling for the alarm button on her bedside table. Her fingers found the button and pressed it repeatedly. No alarm sounded. No guards rushed to her aid. A small light appeared across the room. A human face illuminated by a handheld device. Captain Andrew Mills sat in her chair, perfectly still, his expression completely calm. "Your security is asleep," Andrew said quietly. "They will wake in a few hours with headaches but no permanent damage. Your alarm system has been disabled. Your door is locked from the outside. Right now, in this moment, you are completely alone with me." Kthra's crest rose in automatic threat display. "This is an act of war. I am a protected diplomatic officer. You cannot touch me." Andrew set the light device on the table beside him. The soft glow barely reached across the room, leaving most of his face in shadow. "I have something to show you," he said. He tapped the device and a holographic image appeared in the air between them. Lucy Carter's face filled the projection. The medical scan showed every injury in precise detail. Fractured jaw. Broken cheekbone. Brain hemorrhaging. Spinal trauma. The image rotated slowly, displaying the damage from every angle. "This is what you did to a 6-year-old child," Andrew said. His voice remained soft, almost conversational. A child who got lost following a cleaning robot. A child who apologized and tried to leave when you found her. She violated sacred space. I enforced protocol. Andrew nodded slowly. Yes. You enforced protocol. And for the past 7 days I have been enforcing protocol too. I filed formal complaints with station security. I submitted evidence to the Council Oversight Committee. I requested meetings with diplomatic representatives from 12 different species. I followed every proper channel that exists in Council law. He pulled up another hologram. Documents filled the air, hundreds of them, each one stamped with official seals and rejection notices. Every single request was denied, Andrew continued. Station security refused to investigate. The Council ruled the case closed before it even began. Your diplomatic immunity protected you from all consequences. The system decided that beating a child bloody was acceptable as long as you claimed you were following rules. Kthra's confidence wavered. The human's calm was somehow more frightening than anger would have been. The law is clear. I am protected. You have no authority here. You are absolutely correct, Andrew agreed. I have no authority at all. I am not a council representative. I am not a diplomat. I am not bound by any treaty or agreement. He stood slowly, and Kthra realized how large he was in the confined space of her quarters. I am simply a human being who believes that people who hurt children should face consequences. He pulled something from his pocket. Kthra's eyes widened. It was a titanium rod, similar to her ceremonial baton but slightly modified. Andrew had made it himself in the station's machine shop using publicly available equipment. I am going to give you exactly what you gave Lucy Carter, Andrew said quietly. Broken jaw. Fractured cheekbone. The same terror she felt when she saw you coming. The same pain. The same helplessness. And then I am going to deliver you to the council chambers so they can see what justice looks like when their own systems fail. Kthra lunged for the door. Andrew moved faster than she thought possible, blocking her path without touching her. She tried to fight, her superior Zen-3 strength giving her confidence. But Andrew had trained his entire life in Earth's crushing gravity, fighting against other humans who were just as strong and just as determined. Kthra's claws raked across his arm, drawing blood. He barely seemed to notice. He caught her wrist and applied pressure to a nerve cluster. Kthra's arm went numb instantly. She swung with her other hand. Andrew blocked it, redirected her momentum, and forced her down onto her knees with technique that left no room for resistance. I do not want to do this, Andrew said, and Kthra heard genuine regret in his voice. I would much rather the law had handled it properly. But you hurt a child and faced no punishment. That cannot stand. That will never stand. Not while humans draw breath. The titanium rod rose and fell with terrible precision. The crack of breaking bone echoed in the small room. Kthra's jaw shattered exactly as Lucy's had. The pain was immediate and overwhelming. She tried to scream but the broken jaw would not cooperate, producing only a strangled moan. Andrew struck again, the rod catching her cheekbone with surgical accuracy. The bone fractured in the same pattern as the injury he had seen in Lucy's medical scans. Kthra collapsed, tasting blood, feeling the same terror that a 6-year-old child had felt 7 days ago. Now you know, Andrew said quietly. He was already moving toward the door. Now you know what she experienced. Now you understand what you did. He wrapped Kthra carefully in restraints that would hold her but not cause additional injury. He sealed the evidence package he had prepared over 7 days of proper diplomatic attempts. Every rejected complaint. Every ignored request. Every official denial. The documentation was perfect and complete. Then he lifted Kthra over his shoulder and carried her through corridors where his team had disabled every camera and sensor. They moved through the station like shadows, using routes that no other species could access. Within 20 minutes, they reached the council chambers. The council met every morning at dawn to review the day's business. The members arrived to find Officer Kthra lying on the steps of their chamber, wrapped in restraints, her face broken and bleeding. Beside her lay a data crystal containing complete documentation of every legal avenue the humans had attempted before resorting to direct action. A message was attached, written in 12 languages. Officer Kthra struck a human child and broke her face for the crime of being lost. We requested justice through proper channels 47 times. You denied every request. We gave you 7 days to act. You chose to protect the criminal instead of the victim. This is what justice looks like when your laws fail to protect children. Kthra will live and heal just as Lucy Carter will live and heal. But she will remember. And so will you. The council members stood in shock, staring at the injured Zen-3 officer. Commander Quell arrived moments later, his tentacles writhing with distress. "Find the humans," a council member ordered. "Arrest them immediately." But the humans were already gone. Their 3 ships had departed the station an hour before, disappearing into the darkness between stars. Station sensors could not track them. Their flight paths left no trace. They had come like ghosts and left the same way. In the medical wing, Lucy Carter's eyes opened for the first time in 8 days. She looked at her parents and whispered one word, "Daddy?" George Carter cried as he held his daughter's hand. Sarah kissed Lucy's forehead over and over, whispering that everything would be okay now. Andrew Mills watched the station shrink behind his ship and allowed himself a small nod. Justice had been served. Not the justice of laws and courts and diplomatic immunity. The justice of consequences. The justice that said some actions demanded answers regardless of what official systems claimed. Kthra would heal. She would face her own government's judgment now that diplomatic immunity could no longer protect someone who had been publicly shamed. And every species in the council would remember the day they learned that harming a human child brought consequences that no law could prevent. Deathworlders protected their young. The galaxy had been warned. The emergency council session began 12 hours after Kthra was found broken on their chamber steps. Representatives from 43 species gathered in the Great Hall, their voices creating a chaos of different languages and emotional displays. Some demanded immediate action against the humans. Others called for calm investigation. A few spoke quietly about how perhaps Kthra had deserved what happened to her. Commander Quell stood at the center podium, his tentacles twisted with stress. "Order," he called out. "We must have order. This situation requires careful consideration, not emotional reactions." Careful consideration? The Zenthari ambassador rose from his seat, his crest fully extended in rage. A human attacked a diplomatic officer in her own quarters. This is an act of terrorism. We demand the human responsible be located and executed immediately. Murmurs of agreement rippled through some sections of the chamber. But other voices rose in opposition. What about the child? A small Quellan representative stood on her chair to be seen. What about Lucy Carter, who was beaten nearly to death for getting lost? Where was justice for her? Kthra acted within station regulations, the Zenthari ambassador insisted. She had diplomatic immunity. The human had no right to touch her. The chamber doors opened. Every head turned. Captain Andrew Mills walked calmly down the center aisle, alone and unarmed. Gasps echoed through the hall. Security guards moved to intercept him, but Quell raised a tentacle to stop them. "Let him speak," Quell said quietly. "I want to hear what he has to say." Andrew reached the central floor and stood where all could see him. He carried a single data pad. His expression remained neutral, showing neither fear nor aggression. He looked around the chamber at the assembled representatives of galactic civilization. "My name is Andrew Mills," he began, his voice carrying clearly in the suddenly silent hall. "I am responsible for what happened to Officer Kthra. I came back to face whatever judgment you decide. But first, I ask that you review the evidence." He activated the data pad. Holographic displays appeared throughout the chamber, visible from every seat. The first image was Lucy Carter's medical scan, showing her injuries in brutal detail. "This is Lucy Carter, age 6, Andrew said calmly. She followed a cleaning robot into a restricted area by accident. When she tried to apologize and leave, Officer Kthra struck her with a metal baton. Lucy's jaw was broken. Her cheekbone was shattered. She suffered brain bleeding and spinal trauma. She nearly died." The chamber remained silent. Andrew advanced the display. "This is the first complaint I filed with station security, requesting investigation and justice. It was denied within 2 hours. This is my second complaint, filed with the Council Oversight Committee. Denied. This is my third complaint, submitted to the Diplomatic Review Board. Also denied." The holographic displays began showing document after document. Formal requests. Official complaints. Legal petitions. Each one properly formatted according to council law. Each one stamped with rejection notices. 47 times, Andrew said, his voice still calm but harder now. 47 different attempts to seek justice through your legal system. Every single one was denied. Kthra's diplomatic immunity protected her from all consequences. Your system decided that a child's broken face mattered less than a diplomat's privilege. A representative from the peaceful Mirati species spoke up, her voice gentle. "But violence cannot be the answer to violence. You have created a terrible precedent. If everyone who feels wrong takes justice into their own hands, civilization collapses. Andrew looked at her directly. You are absolutely right. I agree with you completely. That is exactly why I tried your legal system first. For 7 days I waited. I followed every rule. I submitted every form. I requested every meeting. And your system told me that the person who nearly killed a child for getting lost would face no punishment at all. He advanced the display again. Images of Kthra appeared, showing her injuries. They were severe but precisely controlled. The same damage she had inflicted on Lucy, nothing more, nothing less. I gave Kthra exactly what she gave to Lucy, Andrew said. No more. No less. She will heal completely just as Lucy is healing. But she will remember what it feels like to be helpless and in pain. She will remember what that 6-year-old child experienced. The Zenthri ambassador stood again. This is still assault on a diplomatic officer. You admit your crime. You must be punished according to council law. I will accept any punishment you decide, Andrew replied. I came back specifically to face it. But I want this council to understand something very important. I am one human. If Lucy had been my daughter instead of George Carter's daughter, I would have acted sooner and with far less restraint. There are billions of humans in this galaxy now. We are integrating into council society. We are following your laws and learning your customs. But there is one law that every human carries in their heart, written deeper than any legal code you can create. He paused, making sure every representative was listening. Humans protect children. All children. Always. If your legal systems fail to protect children, humans will provide their own justice. This is not a threat. This is simply a fact about our species that you need to understand. We evolved on a world that tried to kill us constantly. We survived because we protected our young with absolute ferocity. That instinct does not disappear when we travel to the stars. A long silence filled the chamber. Then a representative from the insectoid clixer hive spoke, their translator rendering their clicks into standard galactic. The human speaks truth we must acknowledge. Our systems did fail. We placed diplomatic procedure above the protection of a child. This was wrong. Other voices began agreeing. Not all but many. The tide in the chamber was shifting. Commander Quell raised his tentacles for attention. This council must make decisions. First, regarding Officer Kthra. Second, regarding Captain Mills. Third, regarding our policies to prevent such incidents in the future. The voting took 3 hours. Kthra was stripped of her diplomatic rank immediately. Her immunity was revoked retroactively. She would be returned to Zenthri homeworld to face trial in their courts for excessive use of force against a minor. The Zenthri ambassador protested but was overruled by majority vote. Regarding Andrew Mills, the council was deeply divided. Some demanded execution. Others argued for imprisonment. Finally, a compromise was reached. Andrew was found guilty of assault but sentenced to time already served, considering the 7 days he had spent attempting legal remedies first. He was banned from holding any official position in council space but otherwise free to go. The final decision was perhaps the most important. The council established new protocols for all stations and facilities. Any incident involving children would be automatically investigated by independent oversight, regardless of diplomatic status. Diplomatic immunity would no longer protect anyone accused of harming minors. Special protections were codified into law, making children of all species sacred and untouchable. The session ended near midnight. Andrew Mills walked free from the chamber, though he knew he could never return to any council station again. He did not mind. The mission was complete. He returned to Harmony Station one final time to check on Lucy Carter. She was sitting up in bed now, her jaw healing, her smile returning. When she saw Andrew, she did not know who he was, but she waved anyway because she was 6 and friendly to everyone. George and Sarah Carter knew exactly who he was. They stood and offered their hands. "Thank you," George whispered. "The council just announced new protection laws for children. They are calling it Lucy's Law." Andrew shook both their hands. "She is a brave girl. She will heal and have a good life. That is what matters." He left the station for the last time as the sun rose over the observation decks. His ship joined the other 2 waiting in nearby space. Together they turned toward distant stars and disappeared. On Harmony Station in the medical wing, Lucy Carter asked her father for ice cream. Sarah laughed and went to find some. George sat beside his daughter and watched her smile, knowing that across the galaxy billions of humans would hear this story. They would remember that when the law failed to protect one of their children, Deathworlders had delivered their own justice. The council had learned an important lesson. Humans could be patient. Humans could follow rules. Humans could integrate into galactic society peacefully. But harm a human child and Deathworlders would show you what they really were. Survivors from a planet that tried to kill them every day. Protectors of their young with a ferocity that no law could restrain. The galaxy would not forget.